Hello everyone. The topic of today's discussion is Wordsworth theory of poetry. So let's learn what is the theory of poetry given by William Wordsworth. Wordsworth's theory of poetry includes five things. First, he talks about what is a poet or who is a poet. Second, what is poetry. Third, what is poetic truth. Fourth, what is the end and function of poetry. And finally, he talks about what is the most suitable language of poetry. So we will discuss all these elements one by one, which are included in the theory of poetry given by William Wordsworth. First, he talks about what is a poet or who is a poet. He says that a poet is a man speaking to man. So he is no different from other man. So a poet is a man speaking to man. He is a man among man. He is one of us, no different from us. So as far as the faculties are concerned, he is just like other man. Sense of observation, pity, love, patience. So we all as human beings have these all faculties. We have the faculty of observation, we have the faculty of pity, we have the faculty of love, we have the faculty of patience. So all human beings have these faculties, and a poet has also these all faculties. So of a poet are just like an ordinary man. So then what makes a poet different from other human being? So a poet is no different in having all these qualities as we mentioned here from an ordinary man. As an ordinary human being has also these all qualities. The only difference that is of a degree and quality of these faculties. So a poet will have a higher degree of observation, right? And a poet will have a higher degree of pity, and a poet will have a higher degree or greater degree of intensity of love, similarly of patience, right? So the poet has also these all faculties as human beings have: observation, pity, love, patience, right? But a poet will have a greater degree or higher quality than like common people. That what makes a poet different from other human beings, right? Now if we talk about imagination, so Wordsworth says a poet according to Wordsworth is a man speaking to man because he is a man, or we can say that a poet is like a human being speaking to other human being, right? So but he has certain characteristics in which he is more intense and emphatic. One of such peculiarity is that he has much stronger imagination and finer and stronger sensibility. So we as human beings, we have the faculty of imagination. I can imagine, you can imagine. So we have all imagination. And we have also a sense of like sensibility, right? We have also sensibility. But a poet will have stronger sensibility and a poet will have stronger imagination. That will make a poet different from other man. Otherwise, he is a man speaking to man. So we all have imagination and sensibility, but the poet has them in stronger degree. What makes a poet different from other human being? That is of degree, level of degree. So it enables the poet to see things in different ways as compared to ordinary man. Like, for example, if you talk about that daffodil, I can go and I can see daffodil, but I cannot observe the way Wordsworth observes, right? Or you go and you observe like daffodil, but you cannot observe, right? The way a poet observe. Similarly, like there's a poem and it is titled as The Solitary Reaper. So what happens in Solitary Reaper? It's a poem about music, a song, and a Scottish girl sings as she cuts hay and stickle. So a poet, Wordsworth, goes and observes, right? That what is happening. So And then a poet imagines. So we don't have such kind of higher degree of imagination, high degree of sensibility. So a poet can sense in a deeper way or in an intense way than a common man. Now, sympathy and empathy. The next quality which is found in a poet is abundance and more than an ordinary man, that is sympathy. So, as human being, everybody has sympathy and empathy. But a poet will have sympathy and empathy like in a little bit greater degree or quality. So that is okay. Like when there is imagination, so there is sympathy. In fact, Wordsworth used the word empathy, not sympathy. So the poet has empathy. It means the poet has so strong imagination that he can identify himself with other person. If you don't have empathy, if you don't have sympathy, because there's difference between sympathy and empathy. Sympathy, right, that you feel sorry for someone, right? Somebody doesn't have something, you feel sorry for someone. And empathy is that when you walk in someone else's shoes, or when you identify yourself with someone else, this is then empathy. So the poet has empathy. It means that poet has so strong imagination that a poet can identify himself with other person. The feeling of that other man then becomes his own feeling. For example, you see someone and somebody suffering from pain, right? You see someone and somebody has a lot of troubles and problems, right? And you identify yourself with that person. You actually become that person, right? You identify and you become that person, right? So what like the process and the suffering the person is going through, you also go through that suffering, you become that person. It is like empathy. So as human being we have empathy, but that is not of a higher degree or intense level that the poet have. So the poet has this degree of sympathy. Therefore, the things which leave most of us cold and indifferent, they arouse strong emotional enthusiasm in a poet. He has the capacity for strong emotional enthusiasm. Because if you don't have stronger degree of empathy, you cannot identify yourself with other human being. So that's why that a poet is different from other human being, that the level of empathy is like on higher quality or intense level. So the poet can identify himself or herself with the situation, with the person. That's why that he creates like empathy, right? This is okay what Wordsworth mean. So a man please, this is the next one, that a man please with his own passion and volition plus the ability to create events arousing feeling which resembles real feeling. So what does it mean? That a poet is a man who is pleased with his own passions and volition, will. He does not need the help of any outside patience. The patience is created within him or within her, right inside, and volition. He takes delight in the spirit of life that is in him. He has the ability to live within himself, which ordinary men do not have. He takes delights in contemplating similar patience and volition in going on the universe. So every person cannot have such what we can say, cannot find like these things within themselves, right? Patience and volitions, right? You may have from outside, but a poet finds insight in himself or herself. So the poet tries to find the same patience in the universe that he has inside. The poet has inside such patience and volition well, and then the poet finds also outside in the universe. He can talk about those things which are absent, is if they are present. That is through imaginations. And we can see that most of the time the poets talk about such things which are absent, but they present as they are present. Right? So he can or she can create such feeling in you by describing imaginary events, but the feeling which these events arouse are similar to those feelings which are aroused by real events. For example, when Wordsworth, he goes and he observes daffodil, right? So the situation, right, through out of his imagination he creates, right? So an ordinary man cannot see, but he makes them to feel, because what's going on inside in a poet also going outside, and what is going outside he makes like a kind of resemblance between such things. And this, now there's a question, how can you live within yourself? Like all mystic, Wordsworth think that human personality has three cases. The outer case is the body, below is the mind, which is different from the body, right? Our volition, passion, and thoughts are the activities of the mind. Whatever you do, they are the activity of the mind. So on outer case, you have a body, and below is the mind, which is different from the body. Or volition, whatever we do, passions and thoughts are the activities of the mind. Lower than this is the spirit of life. That is very important, where a common man cannot reach. So the soul deeper than the mind is the soul of God, the God within us. So the God exists within us. And this is the thing where the poet can reach. So it is the same soul in all, and that is what the poet discovers and is filled with ecstasy. The poet finds the same things in universe. So that is what makes the poet different than us, right? So we may have like two layers. One is the body and one is the mind. But the poet discovers the God within the poet, right? So this is okay what makes a poet different. And then clarity of expression. As the poet has greater sensibility and imagination, so he is able to think clearly and present things finely. For doing this, he is helped by his linguistic abilities too. If you don't have linguistic abilities, you can't become a good poet. So he has stronger command of language. It is not only the command, but the power of imagination, which help the poet a lot. So this is also very important, that if you have imagination, if you have observation, you have all faculties, deeper love, sensibility, all things, but you don't have command over the language, you don't have linguistic abilities, still you are not a perfect poet, right? So this is okay when he talks about that a poet must have linguistic abilities too. He has greater command of language, and it's not only the command but the power of imagination which help him. So both are important. On the one hand, Wordsworth talks about the power of imagination, and on the other hand he talks about linguistic ability. If you have linguistic abilities but you don't have the power of imagination, so you're not a poet. And if you have the power of imagination but you don't have linguistic ability, still you're not a poet. So both are important and are interdependent on each other. So thank you so much. In the next lecture, we will talk about that the second thing he talks about, and that will be what is poetry. So we will talk in detail in the next lecture what is poetry. Please don't forget to subscribe and like the channel, and please leave your valuable comment. Thank you so much.